couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
So, God has asked me to prepare a written testimony. And as shy as I am, be obedient, and I'm going to share it. I've been sitting on this for a little while now. Do it. Okay. I'm going to read it. It's called Iran. In 2015, I lost all but 2 inches of my colon. 5 days later, I coded. After years of unresolved illness, I sought the world-renowned Mayo Clinic, and I was told you could have the surgery, but it'd only buy you a few years. The doctors may have been discouraged, but I wasn't. My father's always told me, you don't have to be bigger or stronger than your opponent, just smarter. So I dove straight into my own research and prepared my mind and my body. Physical therapy, liquid diets. If I threw it up, drink it again. And as a child of God, I knew I was worth the effort, so I had the surgery. I don't recall the details of coding, but I remember hearing the rapid response team, and cognitively, I knew what was happening. My heart became voluntary, like as if you're trying to move your toe. I was revived, returning to everyday life. I ran. I became a runner, preferably outside. You don't comprehend how beautiful and vibrant God's earth is until you see true darkness. I continued rehabilitating my body and my mind, appreciating every blade of grass, every ache and pain, every storm. I had a few complications naturally, but I knew God was there, so I didn't fear. A couple years later, my mom died unexpectedly just 4 days after I'd had a pancreatic surgery. As a result, my stepfather of 20 years suffered a mental breakdown, and he didn't recover. I had suddenly lost 2 parents overnight. I did end up hospitalized for a couple days due to exhaustion, but again, I ran. My job at the time saw me as a liability, so I quit. That's business. But no moment wasted. I took the time to recover and grieve. And along this journey, I met my husband. He was so understanding. The things I had gone through didn't turn him away, it drew him closer. He's an abuser. I told him my standards. He met all the wonderful men in my life. He almost immediately bought a house, acted just like all the men. We started a family, married, the American dream. Over time, that dream had become a nightmare. Everything was almost impossible. But remember, you don't have to be bigger or stronger than your opponent, just smarter. I jumped through his hoops and ever-moving goalposts, praying to God for assistance. Finally finessed my way into a job caring for a disabled child, and that family was an answer to my prayer. Every Sunday, I would arrive to work early to take my patient with her family to church. And then one Sunday, there was a guest preacher. And he said, "It is better to tie a millstone around your neck and jump into the middle of the sea than it is to lead a child astray." I'd been at a crossroads previously. If I leave, I'll be alone with them. If I stay, they're supervised. But if I stay, we're still in the same boat, living in this violent home that is dangerous. I instantly knew God was telling me to leave. It'd be better to die trying. If I stayed, I was an active participant in teaching my children my worth and in turn theirs. I had secretly secured a small apartment with the help of my father and friends. A few days after signing the contract, my grandfather died. He was my last remaining grandparent. I had to pretend through immense grief that everything was normal for the safety of myself and my children. I don't know if it was the attention to my grandfather's passing, but my husband went into that final rage. So I ran, and I ran with an infant, a toddler, and a diaper bag. I swallowed my embarrassment, and I walked into a domestic violence resource center one day before my daughter's first birthday. My number one goal was to get therapy for my son, who was old enough to be impacted by the abuse that he witnessed. My father paid for lawyers, the protection order was filed, and the legal abuse began. I had my daughter's first birthday party at my recently deceased grandfather's house with the family I had been previously isolated from. My father didn't show. Something was definitely wrong. We took home the groceries that my grandfather had purchased just prior to his passing, and that's what we ate. My family and friends rallied around me. They bought diapers, wipes, bedding. And the next day, my best friend's mother died on my birthday. She had been battling stage 4 cancer. My nursing license was due, so I prayed. Without my nursing license, I'd lose the only income that I had. So my friend was cleaning out her mother's house and drove supplies to me, laundry detergent, soap, shampoo. And I was unpacking these items that she brought. I found a card. Along with one of the most beautiful notes I've ever received was a check from her recently deceased mother. I immediately deposited it, renewed my license, filled up with gas. You see, God walks before us. He placed it on Kathy's heart before I prayed. My dad was my rock. He was a kind, wise, God-fearing man. He taught me almost everything that I know. He was the most reliable person I have ever met. So when he didn't show up to my daughter's first birthday, we knew something was very wrong. He wasn't able to comprehend time. His speech was slurring, and suddenly he began walking sideways. It was ALS. A couple weeks later, my great aunt died unexpectedly. She had supported me prior to leaving my husband. She even devised the plan to make him a pallbearer so he wouldn't suspect anything, keeping me safe. Another funeral. A month later, a friend of mine was driving back to Oklahoma with her children for the holidays. She'd been living in Arizona for a couple of years, so I was excited for her temporary return. She posted pictures along the way. The smiles they all had on their faces were contagious. I get a call. Michelle and her children were in a car wreck overnight. Michelle and one of her children died. 2 more funerals. And I was packing my nursing bag to leave work for Michelle and Ryder's funeral. I get another call. My aunt died unexpectedly. Instead of driving to Michelle and Ryder's funeral, I drove to my aunt's house to meet the medical examiner. She had just been declared cancer-free from stage 4 lung cancer, but it was pneumonia. Another funeral. In the meantime, my father is rapidly declining. The paralysis is moving downwards. I always had it in my heart that I'd care for my dad when the time came, just as he's always cared for me. My sister became his primary caregiver, and I relieved her every moment that I could. I was heartbroken I wasn't able to care for him the way that I wanted. Previously, my sister and her husband had tried to move out of state, but everything went wrong. So conveniently, they were in Oklahoma and they were able to care for him. And watching their relationship flourish was beautiful. Because you see, God walks before us. Seemingly overnight, I'd become a single mother with 2 small children, going through a brutal divorce and custody battle, losing every material item I had ever owned, thrust into poverty, and continuous hate for my abuser's family. I don't understand. And everyone I loved was dying, including my dad. So I ran, one foot in front of the other, because you see, as a runner, can't look in the distance or you'll collapse. And concentrate on one solitary step at a time. Running is a mental sport more so than it is a physical one. Every step is conditioning you to become mentally stronger. In the midst of all the suffering, I kept in mind you don't have to be bigger or stronger than your opponent, just smarter. Life was my opponent, and it was coming at me rapidly. Escaping my abuser, poverty, legal battles, 6 deaths, and the terminal diagnosis of my dad. All in just 2 months. My top priority was to keep my mind in top shape. Before I figured out how we would eat, I enrolled in therapy for myself and my children. Took a deep dive into my faith, put effort into my mental health, jumping headfirst into the pain. I set aside phone dates with friends who are now my family, and learned to ask for help. My relationship with God grew exponentially. 1 year after my father's diagnosis, he passed. But also in that year, I moved to a beautiful home in a great school district, joined a nonprofit organization, rebuilt everything I had lost materialistically to even better, won all my legal battles, increased my credit score over 100 points. My children are flourishing, and I had so much excess I was able to donate to charities that help women and children. If you have the mental capacity, you can think your way through every given scenario. As humans, it is our well-developed brain that makes us the apex predator. We aren't bigger, we aren't stronger, but we are smarter. We're designed to run, jumping hurdles, enduring the pain along the way. And some people say that life is a marathon. I'd argue it's more of a relay race. I hope that throughout my testimony you see a common theme. I pray. As I run, I continuously pass the baton to Jesus. And while I rest and wait, he runs the race for me. I eagerly seek his guidance for my next move, and he gives me his strength. I'm not ashamed of running. I know there's a negative connotation when you hear she ran. But what if she isn't running away? But she's running towards a better life for herself and her children and her children's children. So always remember, you don't have to be bigger, stronger than your opponent, just smarter. So pray.